For those of you that are now just listening to our conversation, we were talking about how we cry at shows. After I dropped out of college, my mom took me to New York. She took me to see Sweet Charity on Broadway, and I cried hysterically. I was like, this is what I want to do. It was like God came down and said, your life must stop and you must play this character. There was this thing going around, a secret, the law of attraction. I won't take you through the entire journey, but I ended up becoming Linda in the Broadway National Tour of the Wedding Singer. And when I played that role for the first time, I'm wearing the same exact costume that Felicia Finley wore when I saw her on Broadway. I walked backstage and I collapsed on the ground and I was like, this works. Anything that I want, I can create. And within 1 week's time, I lost all of it. The guy that I was with broke up with me. My show got canceled that same week. And I was left with, who am I? And what the hell am I gonna do?
Hello, my friends. I hope you're all good. Wherever you are listening to this, I hope you're having a wonderful day, whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're listening on your podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. It honestly means so much for me, and I absolutely love getting the feedback from everyone. I love hearing your light bulb moments. I love hearing those moments that are like, I feel like she just spoke to me. That is literally my purpose with this podcast. So thank you so much. I am so excited about the episode that I've got for you today. My real mission for this year was to bring some epic guests. I'm just so excited to bring you this woman, some kind of soul sister. I connected with her over Instagram. I've actually been following her for a really long time. Her name is Jen Gottlieb. She is incredible. The reason why I came across her was that every single morning she does an Instagram live called Get Ready With Me, and she's there with no makeup. She's putting her makeup on and it's so real and raw. I just loved that because when you look at her Instagram, she is stunning. And even when we got on our interview, when we recorded it, she had like the most incredible glossy hair and her makeup was on point, and I was like, bam, she has got her shit together. Apart from giving amazing knowledge and nuggets and value in those lives, I just really feel like I know her because she used to be a Broadway star. This is why I love her as well. We have so much in common. Then she was a VH1 host for about 5 years, and then now she's the co-founder of Super Connector Media, and she basically helps people completely expand their confidence and become the go-to person in their niche. And I don't just mean like the go-to person like, oh yeah, they're quite good, but just elevate their confidence and elevate their brand and their presence and their visibility with PR and all of those other things to just become the best of the best in their industry. She's helped over 200,000 people in the last 2 years alone. She's also in the top 50 motivational speakers in the world. You're going to get that when you listen to her. She's honestly incredible. So if you love this episode, please tag me on Instagram at Carly Myers Life or at Girls Building Empires. I love hearing which bits resonate with you most. And also share this with someone else as well. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. Without further ado, I'm going to jump in to the episode. I know you're going to absolutely get so much from this. Can't wait for you to hear it. Bye.
Hey Jen, how you doing? Carly, I'm so good. I was so happy to be here.
Oh my God. If anyone is watching this on YouTube, you should see the backdrop. Like, it looks incredible. I'm so jealous. Do you want to know what my backdrop is? My backdrop is actually a roller blind stuck to the ceiling, rolled down because we're waiting to renovate our house and it's absolute carnage right now. So I'm so jealous of your legitimate backdrop.
But your blind looks really legit. You look like you're in some kind of cool studio. So I will give you that.
Well, I'm so excited to talk to you because we actually have quite a lot in common. We are both from a theatre background, and I feel like that's why I was drawn to you, because I saw a reel of you speaking on stage and I was like, bam, she has some power. Like, I was so drawn into your energy and just your like confidence straight away, and I just knew that you were my kind of vibe. So that's why I really wanted to connect with you. But I love what you're doing. What you're putting out is amazing.
Thank you. Same to you. And so I love the internet so much because it can just magically, the algorithm can connect you to new friends. And right when we got on here, even before we started recording, I'm like, this is my girl. Like, we're already automatically friends and this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm thrilled to have a new friend, and so everybody can listen to our conversation like a fly on the wall.
Exactly. Those are my favorite kind of conversations. So I feel like I've done a little bit of digging on you, nothing crazy, but I feel like you lived literally like 5 lives already. The whole metal era is wild. So for those who don't know you, Take us back. There is so much to fill us in on, but just tell us about a few of those lives that you've lived up to this point.
I love that you said that, because me and my good friends will always joke, if I was a real, like, had a real job or like a resume where I was really applying to work, I'm an entrepreneur, so I don't have that. But if I did, people would be like, is this one person? Like, is this one human, or is this like 8 different humans? Because I've done so many different things. But the cool thing, before I even go back and tell you about it, the cool thing that I like to always remember is that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And if I tried to understand why I was on a heavy metal talk show, or why I was a personal trainer, or why I lost everything, and I would have absolutely no idea why it was happening or what it was leading me to. But when I look backwards from where I am right now in this moment, sitting here talking to you, it all completely makes sense. So if you're in the thick of it right now, and just if you're listening and you're like, I have no idea where I am. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know why I'm doing the thing that I'm doing. I promise you, one day it will connect to something, as long as you just keep going. So back when I was 20 years old, I dropped out of college. So I was actually a musical theater major at the University of Hartford. So I went to a traditional university in Connecticut as a musical theater major. And I quickly realized, you know what?
My partner used to live in Hartford.
No way. I only lived there for like a semester, because I very quickly realized that I didn't like college, and I dropped right on out. And I ended up moving to New York City to pursue my dream, because this really goes for those of you like that are now just listening to our conversation. Before we logged on here, or before we pressed record, we were talking about how we cry at shows. And I actually moved to New York City because after I dropped out of college, my mom took me to New York for a trip, and I think she knew what she was doing secretly. But at the moment, I thought, oh, my mom's just taking me to New York on a trip, but she knew what she was doing. She took me to see Sweet Charity on Broadway, and I sat in the audience and I cried hysterically the entire time. I was just I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I have to come to New York. I have to move here. And I think my mom was like, ha, 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 I knew what I was doing. And so in that moment, I was like, that's it. I'm moving to New York City. I'm pursuing my dream. I moved to New York, and I went to a musical theater conservatory here in New York City on the Upper West Side, right by where I live now, actually. And right out of that, I ended up getting my dream role in the Broadway national tour of The Wedding Singer. So that was my dream role. That was another one of those moments when I was at a show. I went to a Broadway show with my friend when I first started my conservatory in New York. We saw The Wedding Singer, and there was this character named Linda, the bitch that leaves Robbie Hart at the altar. She's like the bitch in the show. And she comes on stage and she just stole the show. It was this actress named Felicia Finley. And of course, here comes the tears. I'm hysterically crying. And I'm like, I have to play that part one day. It was like God came down and said, your life must stop, and you must play this character. But in that moment, I was like a student. I was living in a tiny little like 8-foot by 8-foot room within the bunk bed and going to school. There was no Broadway in my future. I was like, how the hell is this going to happen? But I decided that I was going to make this happen for myself. I don't know if you dip your toe in the law of attraction at all or believe in manifestation, but I decided that I was going to do an experiment, because there was this thing going around at that moment. It was kind of just started to get popular, The Secret, the law of attraction. And I was like, I don't necessarily really believe in this thing, but there's one thing that I really want. And why don't we just do an experiment? And I'm going to try to manifest becoming Linda in The Wedding Singer, because that's the only thing that I want. So I started to visualize myself playing this character every single night before I went to bed. I would like sing myself to sleep. I would envision myself in the costume. I would see the audience out in front of me. And it was like how I eased myself to sleep every night, just by visualizing it and feeling myself on the stage and hearing the applause. And when I was in musical theater school, I would just practice her songs. And I would just tell everybody, I'm going to be Linda one day. My teachers were so annoyed. They were like, can you do something else? I'm like, no, I cannot do something else. I'm going to be Linda in The Wedding Singer. I won't take you through the entire journey, but I ended up becoming Linda in the Broadway national tour of The Wedding Singer. And when I played that role for the first time on a stage in front of the audience, wearing the same exact costume that Felicia Finley wore when I saw her on Broadway, seeing the exact same vision that I envisioned in my mind years before of the audience and the lights and the costume and everything, I walked backstage and I collapsed on the ground and I was like, this works. Anything that I want, I can create. And it wasn't just because I visualized it. It was because I took a lot of action, and I actually got rejected a lot, and I had to get back up, and I had to go to a million callbacks, and I had to play the understudy for a long time, and I had to, really be really unbelievably resourceful and persistent when it came to getting this part. But that was the first moment in my life where I realized if I wanted something, I could create it. That has always stuck with me for everything that I've done. And after Wedding Singer, I came back and I got this really wild role on this heavy metal talk show on VH1, where I all of a sudden became this heavy metal rocker girl. Please note, Carly, I don't like heavy metal music. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I got this job. And as an actress, you want a job. And I was like, all right, I'll do whatever I need to do to play the role of this heavy metal girl. And before I knew it, I was thrust into this world of becoming this version of myself that was a lie. I was inauthentic. I was playing this version of myself that couldn't have been further from who I really was. And I was completely I lost myself. And I had this brand that I built that was like heavy metal sexy chick. And I was like, who is that? That's not even me. And when you're out of alignment in your life and you're out of alignment in your career, a lot of the times the universe will slap you back in, and a lot of the times it'll hurt. And so while I was trying to find myself and I couldn't figure it out, I'd gotten into this terrible relationship with this guy that I knew it was cheating on me, and it was this horrible situation. I was severely depressed. I was severely bulimic. I had this role in the show. I didn't know who I was. And then all of a sudden, within 1 week's time, I lost all of it. The guy that I was with broke up with me. He's like, I'm going to go be with, he was cheating on me with our friend who he ended up marrying. I went from living in this multi-million-dollar apartment in New York City with him, with this life that I thought I was going to have forever, to having to move into this tiny little room in this apartment with 6 other actors. And I had this window that faced a brick wall. My show got canceled that same week. And so I had lost my boyfriend, my show, pretty much my whole life and all my relationships. And I was left with, who am I and what the hell am I going to do? And that was the moment when shit happened so the shift could happen. And that was the moment when I looked at that brick wall and I stared at it. And I wish that I could tell you that was my moment where I was like, I'm going to change. And it all happened immediately, but it definitely didn't. It was a process. But I remember saying to myself, one day I'll know why this happened. And so I picked up the pieces one day at a time and built a couple different businesses. One of them was a personal training business. One of them was a coaching business. One of them was a mindset business. But each time I used branding, marketing, media to reinvent myself and to tell a different story. That's now what I teach entrepreneurs how to do, how to be themselves and how to be seen as who they truly are, and how to use media, marketing, mindset, and all of the different tools that you can use as a business owner in order to create an audience and reach your fullest potential.
I love that story because I feel like so many people are so desperate to have it all figured out. Like they try their hand at one thing and they're like, this has to be the thing. Like I've started this now, so I'm stuck in this. And what I love about your story is that you've gone from really loads of different areas. You're just trying this until you've figured out exactly where you're meant to be. And I think sometimes people are in such a rush to have it all figured out that they actually end up staying in a place that is, like you say, completely inauthentic, completely out of alignment, because they're like, well, I've started this now, I might as well stick with it. Do you see that a lot with people?
100%. And I think what keeps people stuck is that they feel like they have to have a plan before they take action. And what I've experienced in my life, and by the way, I will never tell you anything to do that I haven't actually done myself or experienced myself. Clarity only follows action. In my mind, finding the steps and the how to get to where you want to be is like a magical treasure map that the steps only appear when you take one action step. So for me, it was like I never knew where I was going to end up. If you were to tell me that I was going to have built the company that I have today when I was a personal trainer or when I was on that metal show or when I was on Broadway, I would be like, you're absolutely crazy out of your mind. But I just had to take one step, and that one step painted the treasure map, the path. And then once I would take another step, it painted another path in a different direction. And then when I would take that step, and my how, the how I was going to get to where I was getting, mapped itself out as I went. I did not know the how before I took action. And people they stay stuck because they feel like they need to have the plan and they need to know exactly what they're going to do and exactly how it's going to pan out before they can go. And the key is to go. You'll figure it out as we take those action steps.
You know, when you talk about that moment of feeling like you knew you were out of alignment, you were like, this just isn't right. This isn't me and I'm being inauthentic. What do you think is the difference between trying something and feeling the discomfort, the natural discomfort that comes with trying something new? Entrepreneurship is, if you're doing it right, you should be uncomfortable a lot of the time. Yeah. Knowing that okay, this doesn't feel uncomfortable, but I know I'm in the right place, between this doesn't feel comfortable and this just isn't right. Because I feel like sometimes people are chopping and changing because they're actually scared to go through the discomfort. How do you figure out whether you're in the right, on the right track or not?
That's one of the biggest questions that I always ask myself. What's the difference between intuition and fear? Because our gut intuition will often tell us what's right and what's wrong, but then also fear will sneak in there and try to tell us what's right and what's wrong. And if it's fear, it's often a lie. It's often, fear's whole job is to keep us the same. It's to keep us stuck. And fear will come in and it'll lie to us. It'll say a lot of things like, you're not ready to do that. You don't have time to do that. You don't have the money to do that. You don't have the space to do that. You're too overwhelmed to do that. You're an imposter. You're not enough. All of these crazy things. It does it to me all the time. That's fear's MO. That's what fear wants to do. But it's very hard to tell the difference between fear of being uncomfortable and your gut intuition saying, I know that I need to do this, or I know that I don't need to do this. So what I like to do whenever I'm trying to decipher, am I just scared or is this really my gut? Whose voice is telling me that I should or shouldn't do this? Whose voice is that? Because often when I ask myself that question, if it's fear, it's usually someone else's voice. It's like the voice of my parents or the people on the internet that are judging me, that I don't even know who they are, right? Like, what would they think? Like, no, you shouldn't do that. Maybe because I'm scared of what they'll think of me, or they've always wanted something different for me, or I don't want to hurt them if I do this, or I'm feared that they'll leave me, or they'll reject me, or they'll judge me. So often fear comes in the form of somebody else's voice. Intuition, when I'm listening in and maybe my gut intuition is telling me to move forward or not move forward, it's usually my voice. And it's, Jenny, you got this. You can do this. You know you need to do this. And maybe sometimes it'll be simultaneously. Maybe you feel like a crazy person. It's like, you got this. You can do this. And then all of a sudden somebody else's voice is like, no, don't do it. That's our brain, right? Our brain thinks uncontrollably, just like our heart beats uncontrollably. The cool thing is, Carly, is like we can't necessarily control that first thought. So when fear comes in and it tries to lie to us to keep us inside our comfort zone, we can't really control that thought. But we can control the second thought. So we can control the thought that we produce after that first thought and then the actions we take as a result of that second thought. So I like to just hear the thought, like, okay, gotcha, fear, I hear you. You sound a lot like XYZ's voice. That's fear. I know you're trying to tell me to not do this. I know you're trying to keep me inside my comfort zone. I've got this. I'm going to choose a different thought. I'm going to choose a thought that says I can do this, and I'm going to take action in a different way. And I'm going to tell you, fear, you can stay, you can hang out, you can come with me because I know you're not going to go away, but we're going to take action anyway. And that always helps me to take action with fear in the passenger seat of my car, right? So like fear's driving with me. It's going to be there. It's so annoying. I'm like, you can't touch the steering wheel. You can't touch the radio. Like, shut up, but you can come. And I'm going to do it with fear anyway.
That's so true. I think a lot of people are kind of waiting for the absence of fear, aren't they? They're kind of like, I'll take action when I'm not scared anymore. But I love the idea of working with it and being like, you can come with me, but I'm controlling this. Like, I'm going to let you know how this goes. If there is someone, a lot of my audience members struggle with confidence. I hear this so much, like, I know what I want to do, but I'm just really struggling to put myself out there. And you talk a lot about being seen and showing up as yourself, which is the scariest thing ever for a lot of people, to really be like, hey, this is me. I'm breaking myself open for you to really, really see me. How does someone get over that fear of being seen? And I've heard you speak about confidence. I've heard you talk about is it 3 C's of how you cover it?
Well, there's a lot of C's. I think there's 6 C's. There's a lot of C's.
Give me the C's. I'm all over the C's.
I think confidence is such a big piece of it, and having the confidence to really show up as your true self and not who you think you should be.
Well, this is probably the most popular question that I get asked because it is very scary to show up as yourself. I spent my entire life showing up with a mask on playing a character. And that's way easier for me. Like I could perform in front of hundreds of people, thousands of people playing a character. But the first time that I had to go speak on stage as myself and not a character, like to hide behind, was the scariest day of my life. And I was terrible, let me tell you, terrible. And then like the first time I ever went live on Instagram or social media or Facebook as myself was scary, scary, scary beyond belief. I've had to work at becoming more confident in that area. So if you're listening to this right now and you're like, I just am petrified to be seen, don't worry. Confidence can be built over time. It's like a muscle. You got to train it in the gym. And the way that confidence is built is by practicing being uncomfortable. Because what confidence is self-trust. If you think about it, the more you trust yourself that you can do hard things and you can get to the other side and you're not going to die, nothing bad's going to happen to you if you do that hard thing, and you know that you can push yourself to do it and you can get to the end, the more you trust yourself, the more confident you feel the next time you go to do something hard or scary. So what I say to everybody all the time, and my team makes fun of me because I say it so much, but confidence comes from consistently sticking with the commitments you make with yourself. Because every single time you tell yourself you're going to do something and you make a commitment and you don't stick to that commitment, maybe because you're scared and you don't follow through, you're actually telling your subconscious that you can't trust yourself to follow through. So the next time you go to do something scary or an opportunity presents itself, you're not going to feel confident because your subconscious is going to be like, oh, you didn't do it last time. Why would you do it this time? But every time an opportunity arises for you to do something uncomfortable, and you commit to yourself, you go, you know what? I'm going to commit to taking action on this. And you stick to it and you follow through and you get to the other side and you did it even though it was painful or scary or uncomfortable. You put another coin in your confidence bank. You build more confidence muscles because then the next time you go to do something uncomfortable, you're like, I remember I did that. I did that one hard thing that one time. It wasn't that bad. I got to the other side. Discomfort's only temporary. I can do it this time. And the more you practice doing that, the more confident you become over time. So if you're scared to go live on social media and be seen, you got to do it with fear in the passenger seat of the car at least once. And once you've done it and you get to the other side, you realize, wow, okay, it wasn't bad. Then the next time you go to do it, you've taken a little bit of fierce power away. You've become a little bit more confident. That's really essentially how you build confidence over time. If you want to go into the C's, like the actual C's of the confidence continuum, I like to call it confidence continuum because it really does work in a circle. The more that you practice them, the more confident you become, the more momentum you create. But really quickly, you start with clarity. You start with clarity because when you're clear, you know this is an actress. I'm sure you've experienced this, Carly. When you went into an audition, knowing your objective of what your character wanted and knowing your lines and knowing you were rehearsed and you were crystal clear, you'd do better. You'd be more confident. You wouldn't be as scared, right? Yeah. It's about being clear on your why. So if you know why you're showing up, why you want to be seen, and usually that why, if you make it not about you and you make it about somebody else, you make it about the person that you're helping. So maybe the person on the other side of the phone that's listening and learning from you, or on the other side of the podcast that's listening, and you just talk to them and you think about how am I helping that person? And that's your objective, you're going to be a lot less scared and a lot more confident. So clarity is the first step. You want to get clear on your why, clear on who you're talking to. And the more clear that you are, the more confident you'll be. And then the next C of the confidence continuum is connection. Because if you have friends and people that lift you up and people that are texting you like, good luck, I got you, I'll have your back, and they celebrate you at the end. And they're, whenever I go to a speaking engagement and I've got my 13-year-old stepdaughter, she's texting me, she's like, I love you, you're going to crush it. I feel so much more confident. Or your bestie that you just hung out with in New York. You're singing and dancing with him, you said, like in your apartment, and you probably felt so confident because you had your friend there. And so having that connection and having those people around you that lift you up makes you feel a lot more confident. And then really important one, consistency. So I said that confidence comes from consistently sticking with the commitments you make with yourself. So you need to be consistent. You can't just do it one time, do the scary thing one time and expect yourself to become more confident. It happens over time, doing it again and again and again. And then celebration is another very important C. So when you've done the uncomfortable thing and you've done it, oh my gosh, I did it. It was hard. It was scary. I didn't want to do it, but I did it. Oh my gosh, I did it. Don't skip over the celebration. Celebrate yourself because that's what produces the dopamine, the serotonin, the endorphins, all those good feelings, hormones, so that your brain is like, wow, when I do hard things and I follow through, it feels good. But you can only get that when you celebrate. And then last but not least, it's commitment, because I already said it's sticking with the commitments you make with yourself. Make a commitment with you, because the only person at the end of the day that you can really truly count on is yourself. And if you know that you can always trust yourself in any situation, that you've got your own back, you've taken away a lot of fierce power, because you're like, I trust me. I got me. There's nothing anybody can say to me that's going to make me stop, because I know that I trust myself to follow through.
Oh, I love all of those. And I completely agree with all of them. The celebration is so, so key. I probably only learned that. I've been an entrepreneur for 10 years now, and I probably only learned that in the last year, really, to celebrate the little wins. And when you're going 3 years without a celebration, it's like, it is so hard to stay motivated. So I fully appreciate that there's celebration. And yeah, the trusting yourself, that's where you start to trust you. When we go back to the intuition and the fear as well, when you start to trust yourself, that's when you feel like you can trust your intuition as well, isn't it? And you're just tuning into you more and not thinking, the answers are outside of you and you need external validation. And we have everything inside of us already, don't we?
100%. It's all there. The cool thing about human beings is when you can tap into knowing that you can create any emotion or any feeling within yourself at any given time, you've got the power. People don't like, they underestimate that, because if you visualize and you get deep into a vision of like, let's just say, in like perfect example, if you are just put on a song that you love, maybe the song is, maybe you have your song that you dance to with your partner at your wedding, right? If you put on that song, that will immediately just automatically initiate feelings in your body that will make you feel good, that will make you think about how you felt in that moment. You're not at your wedding, you're not having that moment, but that music, that visual, how you tricked your brain can get you back there and make you feel that love, that excitement, that joy. So if the brain is that powerful to be able to do that for us, we can actually initiate feelings at any moment in time if we want to, just by simply tapping in. That alone helps me to remember that if I'm in a tough place, I know that I can choose a different thought to help myself feel a little bit better in that moment. And the coolest thing about that is I don't need anything outside of me to do that. It's not always easy. It's not always easy. But we can get there. And if we understand that we have that power and it's all within us and we practice using it, man, we're unstoppable. It's like really cool even just talking about it with you. I have to give myself reminders, and even just this conversation is like really powerful reminder.
It is, for sure. And even like when you said that you had that moment where you were finally on stage in The Wedding Singer and you're like, I created this. Like I actually created this. And those moments are so powerful. And I've had a few moments like that in my life, and it is such a good reminder that we can create anything that we want to. What's your ritual, by the way? If you have what's your go-to celebration to celebrate a win? Do you have
for celebrating, no one's ever asked me my celebration ritual. People always ask me like, what's your ritual in the morning? What do you do to manifest things? No one's asked me my celebration ritual. This is so great. So for me, like it's really little things. I don't have to go crazy. And it's just little different things that I love. Like I'll actually, like what you just said, like giving yourself like a white space day. That's a dream for me. So I like to, as an entrepreneur, this is like a tip for anyone that feels very overwhelmed. I like to work in sprints and know that there's a rest on the other side. So what I'll do is I'll set a goal for myself, whether that is like, I'm going to go to this event that's 3 days and I'm going to push myself and I'm going to go for a sprint and it's going to be hard. There's going to be a lot of extroverting and I'm going to push myself and lay it all out on the field. But I know I'm going to celebrate myself at the end of this, but I only get the celebration if I really am proud at the end. So like it makes me push, it makes me put in the work. But then at the end of that push, there's a rest. And I love having white space days, especially in New York City. And what a white space day is for me is just a day with no plans, where I can literally just walk around the city, pop into a store, maybe a restaurant, listen to my music, walk around, watch the city change. I'll walk for blocks and blocks and blocks and just not have any plans. And that alone is such a celebration for me, because it's just like free time that's just for me and there's no rules and I can just float. And that is so like, it feels so satisfying. It feels like such recovery for me that I always plan that at the end of like a big launch or a big photo shoot or a big push. It's like, you've got your white space day coming for you, so you can push hard right now.
So good. I completely agree as well. Actually, when I was in New York, before I went, my friend was messaging me and he was saying, hey, so on Friday, I was thinking we could do this. And then on Saturday, I was thinking we could do this. So I was like, babe, no plans. I don't want to have any plans. Oh, that's
the best.
No schedule. We are just going to go with the flow, see where we end up. And it was the best ever. But I actually agree. I have a Carly day now every week. It sounds really like, now sounds really self-indulgent, but I go flat out during the week. I work like all day, all evening. It's really intense for a short period of time when I don't have my kids. And then, I have a Carly day. The only plan I've got on Friday is a massage.
Yeah, maybe I need to just like call my white space day a Jen day, and I'll text you. I'll be like, Carly, I'm having a Jen day. Are you having a Carly day? I love, like, we could just like be in our day together.
Best days, honestly.
But no, I fully agree that actually just, having that space is a good celebration for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want to talk to you about PR, because I feel like there's so much noise about social media and you have to be on social media and doing all of this stuff. I feel like, especially in the early stages of entrepreneurship, PR seems like, I'll do that when I'm successful. Like when I've done my story and I've had my career, and then I'm going to have PR. And I feel like it feels like a later stage thing, but you do PR really differently, don't you? And I would love to know, at what point do you think PR should come into an entrepreneur's marketing strategy?
Yesterday. So it is the biggest, I feel like that is such a thing that fear does to us because PR is scary. Putting yourself out there is scary. So the thing that fear does is it says, you don't need PR yet until you're successful. What does that even mean? And first of all, the way that we teach PR in media is 20% of the actual hit is where the value is. Like it's only 20%, like the actual article, the TV segment. People are going to watch that. People are going to read it. But the value of that is only really 20% of the game. 80% is what you do with it after. So every single entrepreneur and business owner needs to create credibility, influence, and authority. Because why on earth would anybody choose you over the competition now these days when there is an abundance of people to choose from? With the internet, there's like 85 million life coaches. There's so many different interior designers. There's so many different real estate people. There's so many and they're all over the place. So what's going to differentiate you from somebody else? Well, it's credibility. And credibility comes from being featured a lot of the time on TV, in the mainstream publications, and on different podcasts, on different Instagram lives. It could be any kind of a stage now, but it's basically borrowed trust. So let's use an example. Like, let's say we're searching for something for our business. Like, let's say we're on the hunt for a copywriter. Okay. Like, I'm looking for a copywriter for my new website. All right. So I'm going to go ask a couple of my friends if they have any good referrals for copywriters. They're going to give me two different people. All right. Let's envision I got two different people, person A and person B. Okay. They both got great referrals. They both charge the exact same amount of money. They both are apparently the best that there are. Great. Amazing. What am I going to do? I'm going to go Google each of them. I'm going to go look subconsciously. I don't even realize I'm doing this, but I'm going to go look for credibility markers. So let's say person A, copywriter, they've been featured in Forbes, in Entrepreneur, in Business Insider. Oh my gosh, CNBC. They've been, they're talking about copywriting and marketing in an article in the New York Times. Holy crap. Person B, they're just as good of a copywriter, but they've not been featured anywhere. I'm not even going to call person B. I'm going to call person A simply because it's perspective. I'm looking at this person and, well, if CNBC trusts them, if Forbes is saying they're the best, if, they're being featured in Business Insider, they must be the best. Also, they can then charge higher prices because they've been featured in all these places. It automatically gives them more credibility. What I would say to a new business owner is you can absolutely get PR before you even start. And your PR doesn't necessarily need to be about what you're doing now. So I've gotten lots of PR and media about my story long ago, about being a coach in mindset and fitness, about being in that metal show. But if you go look me up on the internet, you're still seeing my credibility markers. I was featured on VH1. I was featured in all these other publications. It still means something. It still means that I have that credibility as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as an actress. And I bring that through into my story of what I'm doing now. So what I want everybody who's listening to do is think about, how can you connect the dots? How can you connect what you used to do into what you're doing now? How could you use that story in the media? How could you say how this, a story that I did once was how Jennifer Gottlieb went from being a Miss Box of Junk on that metal show to now doing XYZ. That's a great story. And that gave me a lot of credibility, but it's using something that I used to do and connecting the dots to something that I do now. So get your credibility markers now in any way, shape, or form that you can get them, because it's going to be the thing that differentiates you from the competition and helps to tell your story of why you created what you created.
You spoke about Forbes, Business Insider. They're the big ones. They're the I want those ones on my website. Is there a process to go in there? Or do you literally pitch straight to Forbes? Here I am with my story. I'm ready to be featured. Or do you kind of need to earn your stripes before you go to the big ones?
It kind of depends. We've had clients that have gone straight to Good Morning America from nothing. It depends how timely your story is. So let's say there's something going on in the world and you are an expert that can talk about that. Like, we had one client she has alopecia, and there was all of that news going on with Will Smith and Jada Pinkett, and she had alopecia and she was talking about that. And so all of a sudden, our client who had alopecia, and her whole message is around self-empowerment with alopecia, she was the expert that could talk about that, immediately got onto Good Morning America as her first step. That's very rare. So it has to be something that's timely, that's happening. So most of the time you do have to work your way up. However, the way to figure out where you should be in the media and who you should be pitching first is not what you think. It really is all about relationships. So you want to go for the lowest hanging fruit, meaning who do you know that knows someone that knows someone that knows someone that's connected to some form of media. And we like to teach using the top 20 list, which is a top 20 tool, which is basically listing out 20 people that you know in your life that could have some connection to anybody in the media. Maybe it's Forbes, maybe it's Good Morning America, but maybe it's something smaller. Maybe it's your local TV station. And you think about, which one of those people in your life have you provided the most value for? Which one of those people in your life has the most influence when it comes to connecting you to somebody in the media? And if you really work your network and you actually have the courage to go and ask that person for help, and say, hey, I really want to be featured on this thing. I've got a great pitch. Would you be able to help me out? If you've provided enough value for that person and you've built up enough relationship capital with that person, they'll definitely connect you. And that is what's going to be the thing that gets you your first media hit, most likely a relationship. So you don't need a publicist. That's why we sold our PR agency. We like to teach people how to leverage their relationships and how to own their relationships. But once you get that first hit, you'll be able to leverage that first hit to get your second and your third and your fourth. But use your relationships first. You know way more people than you think.
You can use this. PR is so powerful, isn't it? Because if you have an article written about you, you can have a backlink at the bottom of it to, to come back to something on your website or a product or an event or a book. And it's just like evergreen content, isn't it? It's always going to be there searchable. So it is such a powerful thing to do. And I remember hearing something before where they said that actually people are looking for articles. Like if you can get in touch with someone and say, hey, I've got this article, I think it'll be really good, this is my idea, they need to fill the slots. So they are actually looking for people to go in those slots. So sometimes you're doing them a favor by almost doing part of the work for them, aren't you?
Most of the time, the media needs you just as much as you need them. They need to produce 365 days of content. So they need experts. If you can be an amazing expert and you can provide value to that person in the media by giving them the inside scoop, by giving them some kind of information that somebody else can't give them, or by giving them a great piece of content that's going to make them look really good or make their article go viral, then you are providing a ton of value to that person. So keep in mind when you think, oh, why would they pick me? Why wouldn't they pick you? They're looking for content. They're actually searching for you.
And what kind of articles or stories do you think do the best? Is there like a certain type that is always a good pitch to go for?
The thing that I tell people to do, and I'll go back to this again, is really thinking about what's timely. Because if you're thinking about the news, you always want to think about what is the audience that's watching or reading that piece of content? What do they want? So if you want to be on the news and you want to be in the media, the audience of that news station or of that publication, they're reading or watching to find out what's happening in the news. You can tie your content to something timely that's happening, then you'll most likely get picked up. Like, think about it. Today's Valentine's Day. When you air this, it won't be Valentine's Day, but today when we're recording, it's Valentine's Day. If you're a relationship expert, today is your day. You can pitch the media and be like, hey, I'm a relationship expert and I can tell you 5 things to do on Valentine's Day to connect you deeply to your partner. That's a timely topic. Let's say something happened in the news with a celebrity. Maybe let's go back to, Jada Pinkett Smith talking about her alopecia. That was a great opportunity for our client to come in and say, hey, I'd love to be the person that can discuss what this disease really is and like how you can empower yourself to have more self-love and be, whatever, what she was talking about on Good Morning America, which was a beautiful story. So I would always tell people, think about what's timely, pay attention to what's going on in the news and how can you fit in what you talk about to that thing.
Yeah, that's great advice. So I think some people listening to this will think, okay, this sounds great. PR is the way. I need to do PR. And some people will feel so overwhelmed that they're like, oh my God, this is another thing. This is another thing on top of social media, on top of my email list, on top of all of this stuff. How do I fit this in? Do you have a strategy or kind of an amount of PR that you do, an amount of social media that you do? Do you kind of have a way of fitting it all in?
What I would say to somebody is if you're just getting started, the most important thing is to take action. A lot of people don't do anything because they have analysis paralysis. They get overwhelmed. They think that there's too many things. Oh my God, there's PR, there's social media, there's YouTube, there's XYZ, there's my email list, there's my funnels, there's all these things. You know what? I'm just not going to do anything because they don't even know where to start. My number one tip for you is to start before you feel ready. And just whatever it is that you find you can do consistently, start with that and the other stuff will fall into place. So if you're someone that you're like, I could do Instagram. I like it. I enjoy it. Focus on Instagram. Build your audience there. And then everything that comes off of Instagram will just be like a natural progression. The Instagram will help with the PR. It'll help you get your messaging right. It'll help you get your stories right because you're writing content, creating content every single day. And then you can take that content and you can repurpose it and reuse it for all other areas. Focus on one thing and let that then be the spoke of the wheel. Like all the spokes come off that wheel. So like if you love Instagram, focus on that. If you, let's say you love podcasting, let your podcast be your focus and then take the content from your podcast and like just repurpose that content all over the place. And it's a great way to start without overwhelming yourself. I'm never going to tell somebody like, this is the strategy. You got to do 50% PR, 50%, 20% Instagram and social media and Facebook. Do what you like to do so that you stay consistent with it and let everything else be a result of what happens from that specific thing that you're focusing on. And then everything else will sort of pick up momentum as you go.
Yeah, so true. And it comes back to really getting to know you, doesn't it? And really tuning into you, like, what makes me feel good? What do I feel excited about? What is aligned with me and my personality, and what feels right? The good thing about PR, and this is why I wanted to bring this conversation, is that even if PR isn't your number one strategy and you're not like, you don't have the space for it right now, I think just now thinking about connections that you're making as you go through life, and you speak to someone and they say, I'm a contributor for Business Insider, and you're like, okay, cool, this is a relationship that I want to invest in. This is a connection that I really want to make. And I think just having it on your radar of, connecting with people and getting in the right circles and meeting good people is important, isn't it? Just opening your horizons for it.
100%. Connections make everything easier. I would never be where I am today if it wasn't for relationships and connections. That's the key to absolutely everything. And yes, like we said in the beginning, action is what initiates clarity, right? But clarity follows action. So just start taking action, start making the relationships, start being open to the opportunities. Just start doing. And the more that you just start doing something that you enjoy doing, the more the messaging is going to get clear to you. The more conversations you have, the more you're going to figure out how to talk about what you do, or when people lean in, and what are the common questions that people are asking you. That's all content. Maybe that's an article. Maybe you have no idea what you could ever write about or ever talk about in the media, but you connected with somebody and you had this amazing conversation where they were genuinely interested about something that you had no idea people were interested in. Then you can be like, holy crap, that's a great article, or that's a great piece of content, or that's a great podcast episode. And maybe that's the podcast episode that goes viral, or that's the reel that goes viral. You get the clarity as you go. Just make sure you're consistently going, and you're not going to get the win every time. Every time you do a post, it's not going to go viral. Every time you do a podcast, it's not going to be the most amazing episode in the world. But if you keep going, you are definitely going to get some wins in there. And it's all of those little incremental wins that are going to add up to where you want to be. And then also the failures are the most important parts, because finding out what doesn't work is even more powerful than finding out what does work. You have to figure out how to not do it in order to figure out how to do it better. So if you're failing along the way, it's a really, really good sign.
Yeah, 100%. I'm so grateful for the failures now. I'm sure you are now. I'm sure you're so glad when you look back at that moment when you were staring at that brick wall, however painful at the time, you're thinking, I'm so glad that happened. Without that moment, I wouldn't be here today. And I'm all for the failures. Jen, I could literally talk to you forever. Thank you so much. I'm so glad I got to talk to you, because you're exactly who I thought you were. And I saw that reel and I saw that power. You're exactly who I wanted you to be. So thank you so much. And I have some questions. I have a little quick fire questions. I always end of my podcast, 2 sentences, just finish my sentence, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. So my first sentence is happiness is
helping other people.
Success
is going to bed at night feeling fulfilled.
What is a book or a podcast that's changed your life?
Podcast, Lori Harder's Earn Your Happy, changed my life. Book, The Science of Getting Rich
by Wallace.
Nice. I haven't read that, but actually a lot of people have said that. So that is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
When you love yourself as much as you care what other people think, you will change your life.
Love that. Where can everyone find you? Where can everyone find all things Jen? Give us the DM.
I am always on Instagram. So if you follow me on Instagram and you get a DM from me, it's legitimately me. My team's not there. It's me. So you can follow me at Jen_Gottlieb. And then my podcast is called I Dare You, the I Dare You podcast. And you can go find that wherever you get your podcasts.
Oh, thank you so much. I've taken so much from our chat together, and I know that my audience is going to as well. And I just really appreciate everything you are, everything you're giving. And I've had a great time chatting to you.
Same. You're amazing. Thank you.
Hey, just a quickie. If you loved this episode, which I'm sure that you did, it would mean so much to me if you would head over to iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to this and leave me a 5-star review. It means so much, and it does make, honestly, such a massive difference to how we're able to grow this podcast. And also make sure that you subscribe as well. If you hit that subscribe button, you will never miss one of our episodes. Share this with anyone else that you think will find it valuable, and I so appreciate all of your support. Thanks so much. Bye.